first, let's welcome on Director of Scouting, Andrew Ivins, here to break down the OT7 camp in his own backyard in Orlando. Let's start with the number one quarterback in the class, that is LSU commit quarterback Bryce Underwood. You called his performance this weekend a masterclass. He was named the alpha dog. What did he do to stand out?
Well, Emily, it's more of what didn't he do. I mean, it was a loaded field of quarterbacks. I think we had 6 inside the top 247, a few more Power 4 commits. This is a lot of guys we like. And on Sunday, Bryce Underwood stole the show. I thought he balanced risk and reward like a seasoned pro. You know, I mean, he never really put the ball in a bad position, but at the same time, you know, he threaded the needle and he threw his wide receivers open. He ended up leading his team all the way to the semifinals. They didn't advance to the finals. They were playing low pro, which is kind of a group that schematically is very difficult for opponents to defend. They won a ton of 7-on-7 games, but Bryce played lights out in that game. I mean, he had just a handful of incompletions, multiple long touchdown passes. I thought it was an excellent performance for Bryce Underwood, and he kind of needed this. You know, we haven't seen him yet on the offseason camp circuit. The last game for him was back on Thanksgiving weekend, which is a loss in the state finals. If you dig into the tape, you go back and you watch Bryce Underwood up there in Michigan in the finals. That final drive, he's probably going to want it back. It was 4 or 5 bad throws in a row when he had a chance to tie the game and potentially win another state title. So it was important for Bryce Underwood. We don't know yet if he's going to be at the Elite 11 finals this summer, but for him to come out on Sunday and look like the real deal was certainly encouraging to us.
Yeah, you know, it's been a while since we've seen him, since most of the video we have of him is the snow falling down from those championship games in Michigan, but hopefully the weather much better in Orlando. Let's talk about another quarterback. That's Tavien St. Clair. He is, of course, committed to Ohio State. He was in attendance. What's the likelihood that he could potentially challenge Bryce Underwood for that top spot?
Well, Emily, I'm going to let you in on a secret behind the scenes at 24/7 Sports. And this is my second straight weekend seeing Tavien St. Clair. I was up in Columbus for the Elite 11 regional last weekend, and then he comes down to my backyard. We traded places. He was at the OT7 event. And there's some chatter starting about a potential change at the top. Tavien St. Clair, this is a kid that we really, really like. He's got a prototypical frame. He is all of 6'4", 220 pounds, and he's got a really loose stroke, and he can touch all different corners of the field. I loved him at that Elite 11 regional, and then when we see him at this OT7 tournament, you know, I thought there were some encouraging things. He did throw some interceptions, but you have to remember Tavien St. Clair, because of those Ohio High School Association rules, he's never really played 7-on-7 football. He told me this was his first ever club tournament. He's only played a few with his high school, and those were normally at Ohio State. So, you know, there were some peaks and some valleys, but overall, encouraging performance, you know, challenge, tight coverage windows, made some high-level throws, and he's going to be at the Elite 11 finals this summer. Hopefully, we're going to see him and Bryce Underwood go at it there. But yes, I do think that there's potentially, you know, room for change at the top. You know, Tavien St. Clair sitting in the top 10 for us in the rankings. We're way higher on him than the rest of the industry. I would not be surprised if other people corrected and he moves up their board. But Tavien St. Clair, I mean, Ohio State's getting a really, really good quarterback.
I love it. I appreciate you giving me the inside information. I should let you know we are recording this, so there may be some other people that learn that as well. But we always love the peek behind the curtain when it comes to those scouting meetings. Meanwhile, Notre Dame, #1 class in 2025. They have a ton of recruits. One of them is a quarterback commit in Deuce Knight. He was also there in attendance. What did you take away from his performance this weekend?
Well, Emily, Deuce Knight's a guy I've seen throw multiple times already this offseason. I saw him at the Under Armour camp there in Orlando. Cooper Patagna, my good buddy, saw him at the Elite 11 regional in Mississippi. He thought Deuce was awesome there. And I'm going to be honest, this was the best I've ever seen from Deuce Saturday at the OT7 event. He's a athletic lefty, and I think he's a bit streaky as a passer, but when he's on, he is on, and that was the case day one during pool play. One of the games he went 8 for 8, for 160 yards and 4 touchdowns. The ball never touched the ground. I mean, he threw back-to-back 40-yard touchdown passes. He was excellent. Sunday, took a little step back, struggled with the ball placement. But I think when you think about Notre Dame's quarterback room and what they've brought in, C.J. Carr, Kenny Minchey 2 years before that, under the direction of Marcus Freeman, Deuce Knight's the guy that gets me fired up, and that's because I think he has the highest ceiling of the bunch. He is an elite tester, 4.6 in the 40-yard dash, 4.5 in the short shuttle, 42-inch vertical jump. Those would be top metrics at the NFL scouting combine. But he doesn't want to beat you all the time with his legs. He wants to stand back there and fire the football over the middle. You know, we're going to update our rankings here in the coming weeks. I think Deuce Knight is going to be a riser for us. I think this was really encouraging, stacking those performances back to back. We'll see what he looks like as a senior, but I think if you're a Notre Dame fan, you got to be fired up about Deuce Knight. He can paint the targets, he can get it deep, and then again, obviously he can beat you with his legs as well.
If you're a Notre Dame fan, you should be excited about the quarterback position in general. I feel like we've talked a lot about some big-time recruits coming in there. These guys have to have somebody to throw the ball to. So who are some pass catchers that stood out?
Vernell Brown, out of Orlando Jones High School. I thought he was the top wide receiver at the tournament. He was a guy that can win with his release, and he's got the burst, the lateral quickness, and in this 7-on-7 tournaments, it's two-hand touch. Actually, it's one-hand touch. So, you know, it's hard to produce chunks of yardage once the football is in your hands, but Vernell Brown was one of those guys that could do just that. Also went both ways, one of the few players in the tournament. I mean, most of these rosters are loaded with blue chippers, so, you know, you have your starting offense, your starting defense. Vernell Brown pulled double duty, and that's what he does on Friday nights. I think when we think about where football is right now, we all just watch the NFL draft. If you're going to be undersized, you have to have some juice. Vernell Brown brings that to the table. Ohio State leads on the crystal ball for him. But he told me, and I thought this was the case over the weekend, you know, his dad played at Florida. He's also got a sister that runs track at Florida. So I think the Gators, along with Miami and Florida State, someone else to watch out for with Vernell Brown. And then how about Jace Brown? No relation. This is a kid from out in California, Warren Downey High School. That's where Nico Iamalieva, who was hanging out on the sidelines this weekend, that's where he went to school. Jace Brown, a potential riser for us in the rankings. He's a big-framed pass catcher, made a number of contested catches on the outside. Only 500 yards receiving this past season, but I think he's a guy where once college coaches dig into the tape, he has a chance to move up recruiting boards. Reminds me a little bit of Jacoby Lane, who is now at USC. Sounds like he's going to have a big 2024 season, but he's this large-framed wide receiver, and he's got really, really good testing metrics. So I thought he had a great tournament. And then how about Bryce Underwood's favorite target? LSU commit Harlem Berry, our number 2 ranked running back. This might be the fastest prospect in the class of 2025. He went 4.37 in the 40-yard dash last summer at Under Armour's Future 50 event. He played wide receiver, and he just roasted opposing defensive backs. Just deep touchdown after deep touchdown after deep touchdown. He, too, you know, was able to reverse fields with the ball in his hand. I thought it was an encouraging performance for Harlem Berry. He's a guy that on Saturdays and potentially Sundays is going to have 3-down capability with his hands.
I love it. I noticed you sprinkled in a little recruiting news there, doing it all with the scouting and recruiting. That's why we love to get the intel from these events. If they weren't, you know, maybe guarding Harlem Berry, because it sounds like nobody had success against him, there were a lot of defensive backs there in attendance. Who are some prospects that we need to know about?
Yeah, it was, again, there's a lot of blue chippers, a lot of kids inside the top 247. I didn't think any of the corners had like a excellent event, and that wasn't expected. I mean, you heard the list of the quarterbacks, you know the wide receivers that were there. But how about these safeties? And I'm going to give you 3 of them. Our top-ranked safety, Trey McNutt. I thought he had the best weekend out of anyone in coverage. Had a pick 6, got his hand on multiple passes. He's a high IQ football player. He's a plus athlete. He will bait signal callers into making bad decisions, and he's one of those guys that has the ability to recover and close that gap and then make a play on the football. His recruitment remains wide open. Just took a visit to Florida. He's also been out to Oregon. I was just kind of bouncing some different things off him. He's looking for the right scheme fit. Obviously, Ohio State's the in-state school, but I'm interested to see what direction this goes because I think he can fit a variety of different schemes. So he's the first safety. The second one, Ladarian Clardy out of the Panhandle in Florida. This is a guy, personal favorite recruit of mine behind the scenes. We put him in the top 247 when he had, I don't think, any Power 4 offers. Well, now he's got one from Georgia. He's going to take an official visit to Washington, Mississippi State, Ole Miss. All these schools are involved, and it was easy to see why over the weekend. 2 pick sixes, was excellent in man coverage. I think that is so important for that safety position right now with everyone wanting to air it out. Yeah, you got to be able to hit people and fill in and run support, but can you man up with one of these quicker slot targets and cover them down the field? Ladarian Clardy did just that. I think he's a name to know for sure. His recruiting stock is only going to elevate. And then finally, Bryce Fitzgerald, kind of in the same mold as these two. High IQ football player, takes sharp angles in coverage. He too went both ways, had a few interceptions, had a few touchdowns. He's down at Miami, Columbus in South Florida. UF, USC, I think Stanford's in there as well. Young for his class. He's on the younger side, multi-sport background. I mean, that is all what we want to see in him. So I also thought Bryce Fitzgerald had a big weekend as well.